Okay. I hope Engineer Mildred is in. I've seen her in. We'll start now. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening in Japan. Please welcome to this workshop. We are very happy that you could all join us. So far, we are 92 participants. We had around 374 registrations. Well, we anticipate more. We appreciate that all of you could join this workshop today, the 25th of July. We have planned this workshop as a study results dissemination session, and we hope that it shall give us an opportunity to enhance and hopefully sustain the debate on social equity and social accessibility needs for the vulnerable road users, and with particular emphasis this time to people with disabilities in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Engineer Opuge Ephraim Obolo. I'm a senior engineer in Kenya National Highways Authority, and currently I'm a master's student in road management and engineering at the University of Birmingham. I'm one of the study team members who undertook this study. Other members include the main speaker today, Dr. Esdras Ngezahayo, Dr. Meran Eskedari, Dr. C. Liu, and Dr. W. Evis. I will be the moderator of this workshop today, and my task, besides introducing the objectives of the workshop, which I have done, will be to introduce the speakers, the guests who have joined us, and outline the form that this workshop will take. All panelists will make their presentation one after another in the order they appear in the program. We will not, as they make the presentation, respond to any questions during that time, but please feel free to share any to the emails that we have, to our chat, and to the comment section here. Allow me to recognize a few individuals here who are in attendance. First is our training coordinator, Engineer Mildred, who is taking a particular role. Our representatives from the region, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda. From Kenya, we have the Director Generals, Kenha, Kera, and Kura. The Director, Highway Design and Safety of Kenha will speak on all their behalfs. We have also Namata and KRB who have confirmed attendance. The workshop brings together engineers, mobility advocates, road safety specialists, and planners. We wish to let all the engineers attending from Kenya know that 4 CPDs have been approved by the Engineers Board of Kenya for all engineers who will participate. Without delaying any further, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our main speaker, Dr. Esdras Ngezahayo, who has been the principal investigator for the study on social equity and accessibility for PWDs in Nairobi. He will share the findings of the study with us. He is a co-investigator of the PIARC, the World Road Association Special Project on Social Equity and Accessibility, and he is an expert in geotechnical engineering, an active researcher in the linear transport infrastructure system, and he's currently an assistant professor in the School of Engineering at the University of Birmingham. Before he speaks, we will have Engineer Ezekiel Fukwo, the Director, Highway Design and Safety at the Kenya National Highways, who will share a few remarks on the behalf of the Director General Kenha and on behalf of the other directors from the other road authorities to just acknowledge their presence. Next, we will have Engineer Brian Shikoli, an expert in highway design development. Engineer Brian will take us through the Kenya's efforts on accessibility, and especially in the roadside station establishment to achieve social equity and accessibility in Kenya. Next will be Engineer Angela Odera from Kera. Engineer Angela is taking this currently from Japan, so it's evening for her. She will tell us about Kera's efforts in undertaking this. Next will be Ms. Naomi Mwaura, Widely known for her popular TED Talk, she's been the most vocal voice in gender matters in the transport space, and she's not only spoken, but also written, participated in various research activities, and the Flown website can testify of what she has achieved. Our next speaker will be Engineer Catherine Muni, a resident engineer and a mentor to many engineers in Kenya. She's participated in multiple engineering consultancies, both design and implementation, and she will be presenting today on the key design considerations for social equity achievement to support access for all. The last presenter in this series will be Engineer Pius Ndege of Kenya Urban Roads Authority. He's an engineer currently in the Structures Directorate. He will present on the urban road as a space, place, and as a transport facility. All these presenters, our main presenter, will now take their presentations, and we will hear from them one after another. During the plenary, we'll be joined by two experts. One is Engineer Tom Odago, a transport and road safety specialist, and Enoch Riro, an engineer in Toyota Kenya at the Hino Heavy Vehicles Division. Enoch was very instrumental in linking us with the bus fabricators who we met and talked to in this study. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, allow that Engineer Foucault please starts. Thank you all, and we thank you all very much for attending. Engineer Foucault, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you very much, Engineer Femo Puge, and all participants who have managed to join us from all the corners of the world represented. Greetings from Kenya, Nairobi. My name is Engineer Ezekiel Foucault. I'm the Director of Highway Design and Safety at the Kenya National Highways Authority, and I'll be speaking on behalf of other road agencies, which is KURA, KERA, NAMATA, and Kenya Roads Board. Kenya National Highways Authority is one of the agencies that is tasked with developing, managing, and maintaining the national trunk roads. These are roads that link centers of great importance, plus also national borders with our neighbors within the East African region. And it looks after a network of around 21,000 kilometers. It was established under an Act of Parliament in 2007, together with the other agencies that I've mentioned. So on behalf of the Director General of Kenya, I'd like to just appreciate this effort and initiative. And as an authority, Kenya, we have been in this space for some time. There are some efforts that we have been trying to do to improve accessibility under the social, this social equity for people living with disabilities, but much still needs to be done. Just to highlight what we have put in place to address this is that we have come up with a policy, design policy, which we have captured that aspect very well, so that it is very clear when designs are being undertaken, what is to be done as regards to that area. And again, we have also come up with how we will build our capacity and train our engineers so that they have that world-class cutting-edge knowledge. As you can be able to see, we have our engineers like whom we have taken 8 of them to Birmingham. That is part of the effort that the authority is putting in place to ensure that we embrace the world-class practices in regards to this area. Also, the authority has a research and innovation department geared towards continuous improvement in this area and gathering of data to inform decisions geared towards improvement in the issues of accessibility and equity for people living with disability. Also, as just to bring you to speed, the Kenya government as a whole has a special consideration for people living with disability, where we have recognized them that in every infrastructure that is done, that we have to be able to cater for their needs. For example, now, even the footbridges that we do, it's a must we have ramps as per the law. So we, besides our effort as Kenya, and plus all the other agencies, which is also cross-cutting because it's a government policy, there is a lot that is being done, but of course a lot also needs to be done too, so that we are brought to speed and be able to be on the same level like what is supposed to be done as far as the sustainable development goals are concerned in that area of accessibility. So mine is just to appreciate this session and to thank all the organizers who have managed to piece all these things and all the investigators, and we look forward to having the information and all the studies that will come out of this, which will form and improve and enrich the body of knowledge that will even inform us as we move forward into the future. Otherwise, I don't have much to say. We'll be listening, and we really appreciate this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer. Engineer Brian, please proceed.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to make my presentation on social equity in provision of road transport. I want to start with a wider knowledge. I want to state that in our progressive constitution in Kenya, there is the provision of equity and inclusivity as one of the principles of governance that have been stated in our constitution. So in line with this, provision of the constitution, all agencies of government are required to retrofit so as to take care of the needs of people with disabilities. Now, I will go into Kenya social equity achievements. We have to say that we are still quite far in terms of being able to say we have achieved in terms of provision of structural elements that are more accessible to people with disabilities. So first, as Kenya, we acknowledge that social equity and accessibility improvements can be made better in our road network. We also acknowledge that we need to make specific policies for people with disability in infrastructural access. We also, however, even as we make those acknowledgements, we wish to state that there are quite a number of efforts that Kenya has made towards taking care of people with disability. For example, all our footbridges that we have implemented under Kenya have the provision of both the stairs and the ramps. Now, the ramps are supposed to take care of people who have physical disability in terms of being able to move freely. So the ramps provide just sufficient gradient for those people with the disability to be pushed across our footbridges. I would like to say that in Mombasa, we have a project in which we have implemented a footpath that caters for the need of the blind. So we have installed it in such a way that the texture at the center line of the footpath allows for those who are blind to use their stick, their walk stick, to be able to follow the footpath. We have in Kenya, we construct all our restrooms to provide for people with disability so that they are able to assist themselves while using the restrooms. All parking areas have designated parkings for use by people with disability, so that those parkings are closest to the entry points of key areas where they need to access. some of those that we have done also include making sure that people with disability are considered when we have employment opportunities within the authority. Now, I would like to, after giving what Kenya has done in terms of taking care of people with disability, I would like to give a general outlook of what I think we should implement in order to fully cater for people with disability. Having recognized that the Constitution requires inclusivity.
Are you able to share your slides there?
Okay.
Share the screen, thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
I think if you're not able to just proceed, you have your 2 minutes may be swallowed by the, yes. Thank you, we can see now.
So I was trying to summarize my proposal for way forward in terms of implementation of implementation process to cater for people with disability. And I've said that our Constitution already provides for equity and inclusivity as a pillar in Chapter 6 of our Constitution. And it's a principle of governance within our Constitution. The second one is an Act of Parliament, which already exists. We have an Act for people with disability, and this has provided for how to take care of the people living with disability. Then suggestion 3 on how to implement this is to have all government agencies, including road agencies in which Kenya belongs, to have an express policy, particularly dealing with people with disabilities. And in this policy, there should be a definition of who is a person with disability. My suggestion 4 is retrofitting of existing road structure or walkways to be able to take care of people with disability. We have already started this process, but it has not reached a point where we can say we have taken good care of people with disability. Suggestion 5 is to include in our manuals standards for construction of structural elements that will take care of people with disability. We are already underway in preparing our manuals, and this suggestion has already made to the committee that is in charge. And then suggestion 6 is to define and implement a strategy and program for implementing these structural elements that will take care of people with disability. And lastly, we must have budgetary provisions for this. Otherwise, then all our effort in trying to implement this will not come to fruition. I want to end my presentation at that point.
Thank you very much. Engineer Angela, please proceed. Engineer Brian, if you stop sharing, then Engineer Angela will be able to share.
Thank you, Engineer Opuge. And thank you for inviting me to speak to this noble forum on this very important topic. Let me just share my screen. One moment, just one moment. Trying to access my PowerPoint. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see it. Please proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Engineer Angela Odera, as you've heard. I'm a principal engineer at the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, where I have worked for over 10 years now and gathered a lot of experience in road planning, design, construction, and maintenance management. I'm also a transportation engineer, which is what I did for my master's degree. And I'm currently a PhD student at Shibaura Institute of Technology in Japan. So I'll just dive right into the presentation and give you a brief of the current situation on Kenya roads. As many of you in this forum may be aware, the authority's mandate is to manage, develop, rehabilitate, and maintain the rural road network as per the Kenya Roads Act 2007. This revised slightly in 2010 after the Constitution. So we now focus on Class C roads, which are roads that connect highways and local roads in the rural setting. And we are now providing access to places that could not be reached before. There's much, much more to this statement. So since 2016, Kera has been steering a program we call the Roads 10,000 program. And the goal is to upgrade 10,000 kilometers of earth and gravel standard roads to bitumen standard in a span of 10 years since 2016. So far, we have rolled out projects covering about 8,000 kilometers of roads at a cost of about $2.8 billion US. And we have completed 4,800 kilometers of roads in like 6 years. And you can imagine the impact this has had on improving mobility and accessibility in rural areas for rural communities. And this would include persons living with disability. I'm gonna give a simple example. For instance, where previously a border rider would not, would shy away from offering transport to a PWD, say to hospital. Right now, they would be more agreeable to it because the roads have better riding quality. They are all weather in nature. And within the program, right now we have a policy that for each of our projects, we provide walkways, at least 1.5 meters at centers of heavy population. And as per the manuals, we provide other facilities, bus laybys, pedestrian crossings, which are safe places for non-motorized traffic to move and including persons with disability. But we can definitely do more. Where I am in Japan, I always see people with disabilities every day. It's because the spaces are safe for them to use, but maybe not so much in Kenya, which brings me to my suggestions. First in policy, in design, and then in construction for improvement. So at policy level, we have to normalize inclusion of PWDs in daily life. I've mentioned that in Japan, we see them everywhere, and it's because there's signage everywhere, like in stations, in trains, in buildings, you know, to give priority to persons with disability. And that is something we should consider. Engineer Brian has mentioned about review of our design manuals. I know there's a task force currently reviewing the design manuals, and there's no better time for them to take up this discussion and include provisions for PWD. In our engineering curriculum, we can start sensitizing our potential engineers early on to be alive to the needs of persons with disabilities. Acts of Parliament, we need to craft strong regulations to support these acts. And at design level, we must engage PWDs and representatives in defining our TORs, in reviewing our designs. Data-driven evaluations, very important. We must begin to collect the right amount of data, analyze it effectively, otherwise we'll miss important aspects of their needs. Some of the design provisions, and I know my colleagues in Kera are here, we can even take this up now and review our designs to include like tactile paving for blind people to use, boarding bridges or lifts at bus stops. Our walkways, they need to marry well within the network. be wide enough to accommodate persons on wheelchairs. We will provide signage on all our projects. They can include digital aids, especially at crossings, like those that use inductive loops, so persons who are deaf can get the communication. At implementation, dedicating financing is quite important, like what we do now. There's a PC sum for environmental mitigation in our Bill 25. We can have a similar one for disability provisions. And then our monitoring and evaluation must ensure that designs and regulations are followed. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much for keeping to time, Japanese style. Next presenter is Ms. Naomi. Please proceed.
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon from where you're joining us from. Let me just share my presentation. There we go. Thank you for making time to join us today. My name is Naomi Mora. I'm the Executive Director of Learn Initiative, which is a women-led organization that has over 8 years experience in designing and implementing interventions in the public transport industry, conducting research and organizing inclusive dialogues and trainings to inspire new solutions to transport challenges. So today's presentation, I will focus on one of FLON's program, which is the Moving Barriers program, which works on disability mainstreaming in public transport. In line with our strategic approaches, we started off with movement building by convening a Moving Barriers working group, which consisted of government agencies, organizations for and of persons with disabilities. And the working group was divided into 4 sub-working groups. The first sub-working group looked at disability inclusion practices among public service vehicles, owners, and organizations. The second sub-working group looked at addressing policy gaps. And the third working group looked at advocacy campaigns. And lastly, we have the 4th working group, which looked at empowering users with disabilities to become active and informed participants. And under our knowledge generation mandate, we started off with a study report on accessibility of public transport for persons with disabilities in the Nairobi metropolitan area. This is what this particular study report helped us in developing the working group. Then the working group was involved in developing the policy brief, which looked at the need for inclusive transport. Also, the working group was also involved in the 3rd study report, which looked at assessing the mobility of women with disability and elderly women. And lastly, the working group was involved in the development of the guidebook for supporting and interacting persons with disability, which was a guidebook that will be used or has been used by public transport organizations and operators. And under our influencing behavior change mandate, we've had the working group work on implementing the following interventions. First is the development of advocacy campaigns, including billboards, matatu stickers, boda boda reflector jackets, infographic that summarized the research reports I've talked about. We've also had online campaigns, including live conversations on social media. We also had the working group facilitate trainings with persons with disability, looking at self-advocacy. We've also held community dialogues between SACCOs and persons with disabilities in Kibera. We've trained various public transport operators. This include boda boda, matatu operators, and women in transport professionals on how to support and interact with persons with disabilities. We've also been having, currently the Women in Transport Machakos chapter has been taking sign language classes for the past 3 months. And the research that we've done and the working group has made recommendations to various groups, but in this forum, I'm just going to focus on recommendations to engineers. And the first recommendation, looking at the legal, is to enforce the existing laws, not just to comply, but also enforce existing laws. On technical recommendation is that we must be data-driven. Social, I think I cannot overemphasize that transport is an enabler for participation in society, and everybody should have access to it. On operational recommendations, we make recommendations that public transport have support frameworks, enforcement, and education for all its stakeholders. In this discussion, there's been a lot of recommendations on policy, which for now must be developed and also respected. And lastly, as a way forward, collaborations are the solutions to modern day challenges. And so as a nonprofit working on this issue, we'd also like to partner with Kenya and all road authorities in advocacy, research, and public engagement. And we request engineers to participate in our organized activities and also the working group. Lastly, just a summary of our work. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can find us on our website, www.Flown Initiative, and follow us on social media. And ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of my presentation. Once again, thank you for making time to join us today.
Thank you very much, Naomi. We appreciate our next presenter, Engineer Catherine. Please proceed, Engineer. Sorry, Naomi, if you end your presentation, then she can have a chance to share. Thank you. Naomi, please proceed. Engineer Catherine, are you with us?
Yes, please, I am here.
Oh, please proceed, yes.
My name is Engineer Catherine Munye. I am a senior engineer in consultancy, and I have about 17 years of experience in the road sector. And thank you very much for having me speak in this noble forum. I'm speaking as an implementer because currently I'm implementing a project from our client, Kenyan National Highways Authority.
Engineer, would you share PPT? Could you share your presentation?
Pardon?
Could you share your presentation? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. We can see it. Please proceed. Thank you.
All right. I need this. So I said I'm Engineer Catherine Munye, currently a resident engineer for a road in Kenya, and speaking as an implementer who's implementing one of the designs from the Kenyan National Highways Authority. This is the consultant's perspective on the social equity and accessibility on our roads in Kenya. To address the social equity and accessibility provisions, we have proposed certain interventions during the design review of the assignment that we are handling at HUD. And that is the construction of the Mamboleo Miwani project. One of them is that we have provided footbridges. Number two, we have provided wide shoulders, covered drains, and walkways. Number three, we have introduced service lanes. Number four, we have provided bus bays. And we have number five, we have improved access to businesses and properties at Mamboleo area. And so if I speak about each one of them, for the footbridges, we have 2 footbridges which have been proposed in the project. And the footbridge locations have been determined by involving the residents of the area, the public who operate within the areas of the project, for them to contribute to where they would like the footbridge to be, depending on the activities that are around the market centers and the areas of near the facility that we are developing. For example, we have 1 footbridge which will serve Mamboleo Center, and it will span over the whole 6 lanes, because we are dealing with the dual carriageway, which is a whole 6 lanes, 2 lanes plus a service lane and a service lane. Because of that width, we have provided a footbridge so that the people can safely cross the road without just running through and risking to be in an accident with a vehicle that is also passing there. Now, as for the footbridge, we will have easy access. It is for easy access and usage on both sides. In addition to the normal staircases, we have a ramp that is provided moving along the footbridge next to the staircase. So if you have if a PWD is having a wheelchair, they can move up the ramp safely without feeling that they have been impeded, that they cannot be able to do the staircases like the rest of the people. The other footbridge has been proposed at Uzima University along the feeder road called LBG Riyadh to Mabale to Airport Roundabout Road. Uzima University, since it's there are a lot of students in the university, there's a lot of population. When we think about their safety, we put a footbridge so that they can cross safely. Now, the transition from the footbridge to the walkways also, it has ramps, so that in case someone has a wheelchair, they can also be able to move smoothly into the walkway from the footbridge. We have also provided the wide shoulders, that is 2.5 meters wide shoulders, have been provided on both sides of the carriageways. We also have a walkway, which is moving along near the drainages. And in case the people are very many, the drainages are also covered, which can provide an extra space for those people to walk on. The provided width is adequate for use by pedestrians and cyclists. Walkways are also provided. The shoulders are separated from the carriageway by curbs to make it safe, so that no vehicle veers off from the main road and then comes into the shoulders and gets a pedestrian walking there. Introduction of service lanes. During the design reviews that usually part of when you're implementing the project, a need for service lane on both sides of the dual carriageway was identified and introduced. The service lanes cover the first 3.5 kilometers of the road, because that is where a lot of population is. beyond the 3.5 kilometers, we can say those areas are very rural, but within the first 3.5 kilometers, that kilometers 00, which is Maboleo roundabout near Kisumu town, going all the way to kilometer 3.5, which is at Great Lakes University. There is quite some population there, and as such, we have provided a service lane so that people can be able to access the developments along the area without being closed up in the main road. So that is what we have implemented. Introduction of service lane improves the level of service of the other two lanes. Each direction, while also helping to serve the properties and businesses around the area. On provision of bus bays have been proposed along major centers and institutions of all project roads. Proposals to have shelters at the bus bays will be presented. Ramps for easy access from bus lane to the shelter and pedestrian walkways have also been provided. Improved access to businesses and properties at Mamboleo. The proposed service lanes were lowered at Mamboleo Center, where the high fields to make business promises and properties are easy to access. Ramps will be provided where service lanes are not at the same level with the properties. So when it came to the service lanes for ease of access to the shops, we've had to lower some of the service lanes so that one can easily access the businesses along the road. And where we cannot be able to give that lowered access a service lane or something like that, then we are giving a ramp so that one can be able to access we're putting a ramp so that one can be able to access those developments. And on the pedestrian crossing points have been provided at specific critical sections of the road. The crossing points will be properly marked and adequate proper road signages provided. Access to walkways at the pedestrian crossings will also be seamless so that in case you have a wheelchair and you're moving along the walkway and you want to cross, you can seamlessly join into the pedestrian crossing, and once you're done with the pedestrian crossing, you can again join back to the walkway safely. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Engineer Catherine. We allowed that 3 extra minutes because of the context consideration, the deliberate detailed inclusions, and the stakeholder participation you have managed to bring into your project. At this point, I would like to welcome our last presenter before the main presentation, Engineer Pius Ndege. Please proceed. Engineer Catherine, if you remove your presentation, Engineer Pius would be able to present. Thank you very much. Engineer Pius, please go ahead. I can't see Engineer Pius. Is there? Is Engineer Onyinkwa from Kura present? Okay. If Engineer Pius is not in, we will therefore skip his presentation. Okay, Engineer Pius was to talk about the efforts that Kura is making, the urban road as a place, as a space, and as a transport facility. I don't know what challenge he's faced, but allow us that in the interest of time, we will therefore skip his presentation and we will go direct now to the main presentation of the study findings, the study results and observation on assessing social equity and accessibility for PWD, presented by the principal investigator, Dr. Esdras Ngezahayo. Dr. Esdras, please go ahead.
Thank you, Engineer Puge. And I think we have been really listening and hearing from good experiences from previous presenters. Engineer Pius, when he will join later, if the challenge is overcome, he can have time to speak either during the plenary session or a little bit before. Hopefully he will be able to join. Can you all hear me and all see my presentation?
Yes, we can see the presentation and we hear you.
Thank you very much. Now I can proceed. My name is Dr. Esdras Ngezahayo, and I am assistant professor at the University of Birmingham. So the study we have undertaken and for which we're going to share the results is about social equity and social accessibility for PWDs in Nairobi, in Kenya. My presentation is going to be about 3 main points, obviously, and those are the situation of the study, whereby we talk about why and how this study came. And I'll go to the methodology and results before giving the conclusions and maybe recommendations. Situating the study, social equity and social accessibility have been lagging, and this is not only in Kenya, but also in many other countries, or we can call it a global challenge in our designs and appraisals. Mainly the appraisals are focusing on engineering and economic viabilities, but leaving behind the social equity and social accessibility has proven to be a challenge to the global and sustainable development that we are looking. We may all be aware that any transport initiative could impact people in 3 categories at least. And those are, firstly, transport benefits. People are going to get more accessibility and more mobility. They will get more transport choices. And of course, they will get reduced travel time and increased safety. That is in terms of benefits. However, transport costs, which is the second impact category, these are not necessarily going to be reduced, but they are going to depend on the benefits that the projects are bringing. And we will have a third category of externalities, and these are going to be both positive and negative. We can talk about noise and air pollution that can come with the project. We can talk about vibrations and prices to the properties nearby the project, as well as the overall quality of life issues. Then why this project is taking place in Kenya, or why this study in Kenya? First of all, the study, like the moderator has once mentioned, is part or is connected to a bigger project that we are undertaking on behalf of the World Road Congress, and that is a special project on social equity and social accessibility in global transport systems. So the University of Birmingham is undertaking this study, and Kenya is one of the case studies from the global South countries. Another motivation to take this study in Kenya was the fast growing rate of the road network, national road network in Kenya, but also massive participation and willingness to collaborate from Kenyan institutions, Kenyan transport stakeholders. So for this reason, we said we could improve on one of the topics of social equity and social accessibility, which is transport of PWDs. But before proceeding, what do we mean by social equity and social accessibility? Those are the terms that can be understood differently depending on context and circumstances, and even depending on regions and countries. So we have already said, we know that any transport infrastructure or facility aims to facilitate social and economic opportunities. And this has to be done both equitably, affordably, and reliably. So according to the Australian Transport Assessment and Planning document of 2016, and to the UK Department for Transport document of 2020, social equity is all the practices and the policies for consistent and systematic, fair and just road transport system in aspects of fair and just mobility, fair and just access to road transport, fair and just allocation of costs for road infrastructure and transport to meet the needs of different road users and citizens. So you can understand that the key issue here for social equity is fairness, is justice for all those aspects of transport. And this has to be not only for the road users, but also when we are designing roads, we need also to think about other citizens who may be in the road's environment. In terms of social accessibility, it's all about transport attribute for mobility to be obtained with the same effort. And that same effort should be affordable. And this has to be in terms of cost and time and within different contexts of users, whether physicality, location, economy, social, gender, age, and so on. So today we are only talking about physicality, obviously, because many of the PWDs we focus on today are physically disabled, but this should or can also bring issues of location, issues of economy, age, gender, and so on. Then what do we have in Kenya currently or in recent years? This is the picture that I liked. I got it from Flow Initiative documents, but obviously it was taken in 2015. And it can tell us a lot. From this only one picture, we can learn a lot about social equity, about social accessibility, about PWD challenges in transport. So, and we will discover some of the reflections from such a picture in the next slides. So then my second point of the presentation, like I said, was the methodology and results. And for this study, we adopted to go for a literature to get the information about what is there in Kenya, how are PWDs treated, are they even known in transport systems of Kenya, and so on and so on. And then we moved on with questionnaires to get some responses from a wider stakeholders and people who involve on a daily basis in transport. And then we also carried out some focused interviews. For each of those three types of methods we used, we would focus on a global location. Of course, for Kenya, it's in South. And then whether there is active transport or NMT mainly, and whether it's about transit. So we focused on transit, so mainly in bus and minibuses. Then the travel behavior, the travel barriers, externalities, geographical context, social demographic, such as age, gender, low income. So we are focusing on PWDs in an urban area of Nairobi, although some information also was coming from peripheral and suburban regions. For travel behavior and travel barriers, everything is considered, but for transit type, we focus on bus and minibuses. So we will have the results from the literature, the findings from the literature. We will have the findings from questionnaires, and we will get information and results from focused interviews and discussions. And the combination of these results is going to inform us of the current situation in terms of social equity and social accessibility for PWDs in Kenyan transport systems. So to begin with the literature, the key step in here was the application of the weight of evidence. Not everything published about Kenya and PWDs is relevant information. We have to have an approach to screen and retain only that information which we believe is sound, is appropriate and relevant. So that matrix of soundness, appropriateness, and relevance for studies is what we call the matrix of weight of evidence. So for example, for soundness, we should consider a study to be ranked either high or medium or low, and it's high if it is with clear results or clear findings. It has used clear methods of research, the analysis is clearly understandable, and there is critical comparison with other studies on the subject matter. And it could be medium when the methods are satisfying and results, yes, but the interpretation maybe is with some gaps. And we could also, or we had also to rank the collected studies in terms of appropriateness as high, medium, or low. Same for relevance. For example, it was highly appropriate if the study has covered the main axis of Nairobi, or it has covered Nairobi as a whole, not only in parts, and it has covered all the types of disabilities that can be available there. So for a study then to be retained as a good study to consider, it should score 2 highs and at least 1 medium. Otherwise, it was rejected as non-relevant for our study. So following that approach of weight of evidence, so we collected about 215 studies published on about Nairobi and transport of PWDs. So we removed some duplicates and we retained the 233. These were also screened down based on the titles, the abstracts, and even the methodology used. So we retained on 117. So those 119 were then subjected to the weight of evidence in terms of soundness, appropriateness, and relevance, and only 19 studies qualified to be best informing about challenges about situation of PWDs in Kenya. So those studies were published mainly between 2000 and 2022. So obviously recent studies. And what has been the findings from those studies? We mainly got 9 challenges from the literature that affect PWDs transport. And these are poor or non-existing bus stations. Whether the bus stations do exist and whether they are in good condition was the main challenge for PWDs. Then there was bus inadequacy. If I say bus inadequacy, you can refer back to the image I have shown you, and it can tell you a little bit of the story. The bus inaccessibility. Again, you have seen somebody being lifted, a woman being lifted by a man or assisted. That shows there is not enough to access the bus. Inappropriateness, and then inappropriate supporting equipment. We have non-inclusive planning, obviously, non-inclusive designs Stigmatization was also mentioned in the literature, that some PWDs are denied their full values as human being, and there could be some physical abuses, but these last two are too minimal, obviously. If you consider 19 studies, it's only 3 studies that have said there is physical abuses and 4 studies that were saying there could be some kind of stigmatization. So we have then to go and find the reasons behind those challenges. Why those 9 challenges? So we ended up with 7 lacks or 7 areas that we call drivers of PWDs challenges in Nairobi, if we can say transport systems. So those 7 areas include lack of understanding. So people are really not aware and are really not at the top of the issue. So this was reported by 21.1%. So there is a lack of stakeholders engagement. It's kind of business, but the advocacy is limited. Not many advocate for PWDs. And then we have lack of information and awareness. We have lack of professionals. Not everyone is educated to the level or trained to the level to understand specific or special needs for PWDs. Then there is a lack of political will, and there is a lack of consistency in the policies, as well as a lack of proper policy implementations. So with different scoring grades, we have identified these 7 L's as drivers of PWD's challenges. Those were the findings from the literature. Then we moved to the questionnaire. The questionnaire asked us to think about what are the types of questions should we send out. And then we noticed that these should be differentiated between on-road and on-bus or in-bus PWD challenges. For example, on-road, we asked ourselves, is it the time that PWDs are going to wait for a bus to arrive acceptable or tolerable? Initially, we were thinking about less than 20 minutes waiting for a bus. Is there any shelter at bus station which is going to help PWDs feel comfortable? Are PWDs safe when waiting for the buses? There could be some crimes. How much do you think road designers consider PWDs needs? And do PWDs have access to other means of public transport in case the bus is not there? What else can they use? Then in bus, we asked ourselves, is it easy for PWDs to get into the bus? Accessibility issue. In other words, do they have ramps, for example, holding rails to use? Is there any priority seat for them once they are on bus? Are PWDs treated equally with the rest of passengers, for example? Is there any discount in terms of prices reserved to them? Or should transport regulators impose kind of special care for PWDs? So those are the initial questions we thought could guide our study. But in the end, we noticed that they are very wide. And we said, if we have those questions, there are other questions that can help us respond. So we ended up with these 7, I think, questions, which were then used to find responses, good responses to the previous questions on bus and on road. And those included, is there any debate nationally about mobility of PWDs? Because we believe if there is this kind of discussion, then the previous questions we asked ourselves are going to be discussed in there and solutions proposed. So existence of policies to improve transport of PWDs, are there or not? Is it appropriately implemented? If the policy is there, how is it implemented? And infrastructural accommodation of special PWDs needs, involvement of PWDs in transport planning and demand, assessment of transport demand for PWDs, as well as social justice, affordability, inclusivity of transport systems with respect to PWDs. So those are the questions that we finally decided to send out, as providing responses to these ones would also help solve the previous on-road and on-bus questions. So then we recruited participants. Recruitment was also a good step because we had to identify who should be part of this study and how relevant that person should be. Then we decided to classify or group the population or the targeted population into two. One, the first group was from the road institutions and transport officials, mainly from Kenya, Kura, Kera, Namata, and NTSA. I will come back to those abbreviations at the end of my presentation. So in that group, we managed to get massive 117 respondents, very kind engineers mainly. And the second group was from the service providers, as well as advocacy organizations, NGOs. In there, mainly drivers and PWDs, activists or representatives. And we again got a good number, 63 respondents. So the responses should be in terms of yes, no, to some extent. We didn't want to give wider flexibility so that we can really remove biases. So this is one extract from the spreadsheet. Of course, the responses were coming automatically. So for example, if you look at this one, is transport in Kenya inclusive of PWDs? One respondent was saying no, and then to some extent. That's how we proceeded, gathered all this information, and then done the analysis. So the interesting analysis was that from roads and transport officials, if we consider the yellow color as those who are saying yes, and the red one as those who are saying no, and the blue one as those who are saying to some extent. Obviously, even from the road and transport officials, more than 8% are saying that there is no nationally debate that is open and consistent. Remember from the definitions, we said that social equity is only achievable if it is consistent and systematic. So there is no such consistent debate that is probably coming every year, where people should evaluate themselves, see the achievement they have made, think about what can be improved, what can be changed, and so on and so on. So are there policies to enhance PWD's transport? Are they implemented appropriately? Again, about more than 75%, they say no, they are not implemented appropriately. However, again, the same number, about 75%, they say, okay, the policies are there and they are good, but the implementation is a problem. Then the needs for PWDs, are they accommodated in transport facilities? About 50% are saying to some extent, and 31% saying yes. Involvement in transport planning for PWDs, no. Assessment of transport demand, majority are saying no. Transport social justice for PWDs, to some extent is dominant, but with only 40%, whereas about 35% is saying no. Affordability of transport for PWDs, no. 77%, they are saying no. And transport inclusivity, they are saying to some extent. Now look at the responses from service providers and PWDs are advocating groups. So again, majority of them, they are saying that there is no national debate for mobility of PWDs. The policies, to some extent, they are implemented with 45%, but there is again this big number of about 32 saying they are not really implemented. And the existence of policies, they acknowledge that the policies are there. It's not a problem. So the problem, like it was found for the roads officials and the transport officials, the main problem comes at the level of implementation, but the policies are there. So the PWD's needs, are they accommodated? No, majority is no. PWD's involvement in transport planning, majority is no. Assessment of transport demand for PWDs to some extent. Transport social justice, they are saying yes. And affordability of transport, no, they are saying yes. And transport inclusivity to some extent is dominating. After these findings from the questionnaires, then we said we need to move on and undertake or carry on with some interviews with key people with experiences and have focused interviews with them. So then for the interviews, we have interviewed 3 people from Kenya, 2 from Kura, 2 from Kera, Namata 1, and TSA 1, PWDs, I talk about individual PWDs, 6, then PWDs associations 1, we have 3 NGOs, 8 bus users, bus operators 4, bus providers 2, and 3 bodybuilders. I was impressed that in Kenya, they have bus bodybuilders and they have bus providers, which are working like 2 separate entities. And the findings, starting from PWDs themselves and the NGOs advocating for them, they highlighted only challenges that they are facing. And individual PWDs highlighted that the main challenges are lack of priority seats. So they need priority seats once they are in the buses. They don't have even priority car parks. Once, if they own the cars, the vehicles, they don't have priority parking. Accessibility is a challenge, mobility training. So they are asking that training on mobility of PWDs should be given chances for people to understand what they need and for them to understand what are their rights and how they can maybe make some complaints, positive complaints. There are no signs on bus stops. Sometimes they face open manholes on roads, and those ones, can be sources of injuries. There are poor walkways, high travel costs, unfair public transport, universal designs are not there. There is policy participation that is lacking, and the risks of injuries are many, so they don't have lifting facilities. They don't really appreciate being lifted in hand by maybe bus operators. They would appreciate if they can smoothly either ride the wheelchairs or use any other lifting facility to board the buses and the minibuses. So NGOs are requesting for customized vehicles, road safety, improved PWDs, linkages. They are complaining or suggesting that we should have national PWDs working groups, even going down to the level of counties. They request that environmental barriers be removed, gender effects on PWDs be considered as well. On the top of being a PWD, the gender issue also can an added thing to look at. So they request training of PWDs, men in terms of their mobility, as well as PWDs to be self-advocating on top of having more NGOs advocating for them. For association of PWDs, they mentioned kind of discrimination and abuses, poor and unmarked roads, as well as accessibility and footbridges. So those are the challenges highlighted by NGOs, Association of PWDs, and individual PWDs. Again, moving forward with the results from bus providers and bus bodybuilders, they came up with need for more advocacy. Of course, these are in business, so they would like advocacy to take another level so that they can get more demand, more customers. And minibuses, obviously, they don't care or they don't have necessary facilities to accommodate PWDs. Public transport is obviously not engaged. So some of these people are saying that instead of calling it a public transport, maybe you could call it a public transport business, because for something to be public, it has to be looking at everyone with equity, with equality, and with relevance. So they say that only schools and NGOs try to understand. Some schools have ordered buses fully fitted and equipped to accommodate children with disabilities. Of course, these people acknowledge that there is high costs on installation, but they say we can install lifts and ramps, but at a higher cost. But they say then there is no orders, to be honest, made. I think one of them mentioned, one of these bodybuilders companies mentioned that they can only have 3 or 5 demand to equip the buses or minibuses in terms of comfort of PWDs. The bus providers, they focus on the sales and costs. Of course, they will rise the costs if they are asked to do more. Otherwise, they are more interested in inspection for compliance with the standards and weight. The challenges from bus operators and bus users, they also highlighted some challenges, and this one include special PWDs at school. What is it done for children with disabilities is not enough. That's what they mentioned. Then PWDs changing structures at bus stations. If we arrive at the bus station, maybe somebody without disability can use the bathroom there easily, but somebody with disability, it remains a challenge. All inclusive transport standards, not there, not obvious. Inspection of structural compliance, not done satisfactory. And they are requesting that councils for PWDs should really work effectively, and committees for PWDs installed and work effectively, as well as complying with PWDs in all activities of transport systems. The bus operators, they say that bus provisions for PWDs sometimes, but we haven't seen really enough. Again, they say that they support the front seats are usually reserved for PWDs and they have extra space. I'm not very sure. Wheelchairs are stored safely. You know, when a PWD comes with a wheelchair, the PWD is going to be seated on another seat in the bus, and the wheelchair will be stored in the back room. And they assist boarding, they assist PWDs for boarding buses. We have seen how they do that, lifting them with their hands. And so there is need for advanced technology to help them. But they also complain that some PWDs come with unfriendly behaviors, and that some PWDs don't even trust drivers. So that all those issues and challenges were raised by bus users. And then finally, we go to the big people who should come up mainly with solutions. So those are Kenya National Highways Authority, Kenya Roads Authority, Kenya Urban Roads Authority, Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, as well as the National Transport Standards Authority. So from Kenya and Kera, they say that they are trying their best. They know challenges, they know issues, but they are doing something on it. And amongst many things they do, they highlighted some special provisions, such as improved walkways, ramps, footbridges, bus stations, road designs. And I can agree with them. We have seen from the presentation of, I think, Engineer Catherine, how in the project she is implementing, some of these things are being looked at and carefully. From the Kura, they are retrofitting urban roads. Those roads that were built some years ago, these days they are trying to ensure that they also have ramps, good walkways, footbridges where necessary. There are walkways improved, and they are fixing risk power poles on roads. And this is also the same for drainages. But with fixing risk power poles, I would advise they should work hand in hand with Kenya Power to ensure that when a project is being designed, they look at all the other facilities that should be either buried underneath or along the road altogether. And they are improving project executions. For the national standards and TSA, they focus on the standards. I appreciated this KS 372, which is really a good document showing what should be done to improve the transport of PWDs. And they keep on with inspections of buses. No matter they're interested in improving policies as well, but also on ordering well-equipped buses to work in the Nairobi metropolitan area. Those are the solutions proposed by road officials. And one of the conclusions we came up with is that there is obvious challenges related to social equity and social accessibility of PWDs in Kenyan roads or in Kenyan transport systems. However, this needs addressing at the levels of transport planning, design, construction, and operation. And it needs to be a collective effort. We cannot only leave this on the shoulders of roads authorities and transport officials, but we need to have advocacy from stakeholders, NGOs, the entire community to give a push to those people who are doing our designs. For the design, I am expecting that Engineer Opuge is going to make a good contribution because his MSc dissertation is focusing on how these designs should be improved to enhance social equity and social accessibility in Kenyan roads, and he's using Kenyan data mainly. In terms of recommendations, one of the things we noticed is that the Kenyan transport system is on the shoulders of different institutions, obviously 4 or 5 institutions. And across those institutions, there might be a challenge in terms of consistent implementation of policies. For example, a PWD might be receiving good service related to the project implemented with Kenya, maybe not the same service at the level of Kura, Kera, or Namata. So for this reason, we are suggesting that committees or inter-institution committee working on PWD should be installed, and that for every project, that is going to be implemented in one of those roads authorities. That committee comes and looks at it and gives the point of view or the advice in terms of how PWDs should be helped more. Then there is need for more in terms of policies implementation. Those are the two main recommendations we have made. For more details on this study, there is a paper coming on with the 27th World Road Congress in October in Prague, Czech Republic. And I think Engineer Puge has already acknowledged the co-authors. So maybe I will see you or we will see you there, and we will have more discussions and detailed discussions about this study. The abbreviations I have been using, they can be found there, and the references that I have used. And then that's it from me. Thank you very much. I think I didn't take too long. It's long, but not too long. Thank you very much, and over to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Professor, for the detail. I think it was necessary that we go into that depth so that the perspective can be clarified. On the plenary, we have received already some questions, but I would like, if we can indulge Engineer Ndege. Engineer Ndege, are you now able to present, just to say a statement or two concerning the urban road perspectives? He had technical challenges as he was joining. Engineer Ndege, are you able to present? We have received 8 matters so far. The first one was from Tanzania, from an engineer Laurent. And Engineer Laurent is raising several matters, both policy and design perspectives that could be solutions to the social equity issue. He is sharing the Tanzanian perspective and what Tanzania has achieved. We will be able to share this document with everyone. We have a question on policy on NMT, and I'm hoping from Kenha, Engineer Brian or Engineer Foucault can respond to this. Do we have a policy on NMT? I hope that. Can we get Engineer Ndege? Are you in, or do you still have challenges?
I am in.
Okay, would you please, only 2 minutes, please make a statement concerning Kura.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Puge. Sorry for disruption in terms of net. So I was not able to come in the time that was scheduled. And I was to briefly discuss about Kura in terms of place, urban space, and urban transport facility. On the urban place, Kura was established under the Kenya Roads Act in 2007 as a road agency. And its mandate is to manage, develop, rehabilitate, and maintain all national urban roads network in cities and municipalities. And also, the vision is a world-class urban road network for sustainable development. About mission, it is to provide, manage, quality, and safe and adequate urban roads network. Then about the urban space, people would like to see some space, elegance, space. We are now planting trees to make streets more beautiful and elegant. The shared space is the concept we seek to achieve in including environments, vehicles, and people in delicate urban design. If we leave this space vacant, small business occupy them in uncontrolled businesses and depending without owner. About urban transport facility, the car remains a significant means of transport in Nairobi and all urban spaces. We design for car and manual sliders in space allocations for the car. We now consider walking, cycling, and large increase in motorcycle as an opportunity to think about their needs and provide for them. About my thoughts and thought of the Kura fraternity is inclusion of PWDs should start at feasibility studies to preliminary design and design stage. And also it is prudent to involve them in construction stage construction stage. We are forced to think about pedestrian in all roads, not just in motorized urban roads. We have to increase public participation to get views of users in what their exact needs are. Rules, policies, and approved process should be adopted for our design, current design, and our future design. Engineer Opuge, that is what I earned, but sorry for.
Thank you.
That,
since engineer, you are still on the floor, could you answer a question here that has been asked about how do we handle hawkers or small businesses that are blocking footbridges? What would be your take? Because this is Kura really. How do you handle them? These are hawkers, they are small street businesses, they are blocking footbridges and blocking access. Could you tell us how you are handling this?
Okay, thank you, engineer. We have a challenge on that matter because we are coming up with our network, that is walkways, footbridges. But once we are done with construction, the vendors come and occupy them. So what currently we are doing, we have developed some contracts that will enable us to do surveillance so that we clear the facilities, be free of vendors, and that is the contract that is being implemented so that we ensure that the routes are clear for use as an NMT. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Engineer Brian and Engineer Foucault, any perspectives on the policy on NMT? Do we have a national policy on NMT? This is a question from South Africa.
Thank you, Ephraim. I mean, it may be a bit difficult to answer whether there is really a national policy. I have not seen one yet. I think my colleagues would want to weigh in on that if at all we do have a national policy. But having said that, as Kenha, we have established standards for provision of non-motorized transport. For example, in our ongoing designs, we carry out studies and counts for non-motorized transport, especially pedestrians, and establish desire lines, and therefore develop locations, appropriate locations for footbridges or at-grade crossings. For our urban designs, we are not accepting any cross-section that does not include walkways, because walkways are the best way of guiding pedestrians and keeping them safe away from motorized traffic, and also guiding them to either footbridges or level crossings that are safe for passage of non-motorized traffic. So I would say, while we may not have a written and signed policy, in our design manuals and in our construction culture, we have embraced the issue of non-motorized transport, especially on urban construction, construction on urban section. Thank you.
Would Engineer Foucault like to weigh in on this NMT policy, Director? Okay, I think
as we wait for Director, I would like to add something on the question that was asked to Engineer Pius.
Yes.
On the issue of traders that are trading at the entrances of our footbridges, even on our roads. It requires some concerted effort from quite a wide range of agencies, so that we have designated marketplaces where we have to construct our road facilities into those marketplaces, provide sufficient parking areas so that people can access those market areas and be able to get out of those market areas. And we provide markets that can hold these traders and allow them to trade freely without having to come to our facilities that are providing service for either motorists or non-motorized transport. This will clear our roads, improve safety, and ensure the traders continue with their livelihoods.
Thank you. I think let's go to Kara. Engineer Angela, you have 3 questions. I think you are popular. One is, do we have a cost for incorporating PWD facilities on rural roads? Do we have a cost? Like, what could be the increase in cost for incorporating full PWD facilities on rural roads, considering the current situation where this is not fully implemented? This is from Engineer Edwin Cheserek. And then the second one is on PWD challenges. Are we aware of the actual issues that the PWDs in the rural areas face? Engineer, would you answer those 2 first? Engineer Angela?
Thank you, Engineer Puge. So, of course, currently, in our road projects, we have not really been focused on provisions for PWDs. And like I mentioned, how we can include that costs, even in our ongoing projects, if we had a provisional sum like we have for environmental mitigation, and this is dedicated to providing facilities for PWDs, that is one way in which we can handle this matter in terms of the cost. Now, awareness for PWD challenges, this is a whole study, and your study is, just brings to the fore all these challenges, and it's something we can take up on our rural roads. If we really look at your study, you can share it with Kara, and we can look at it, and we have the projects ongoing currently, and some of these recommendations, we can just take them up right away. Yes, thank you.
Okay, a general question to the panelists, and here any panelist can weigh in. 2 matters. One is the matter that Engineer Mark Okuku has raised on NMT and PWD facilities. Is there a line? And Professor, we discussed this matter. Maybe you could also weigh in on this matter of the question that Engineer Mark Okuku has raised. Any panelists willing to address this?
Yes, I would like to just give a very quick short answer to Mark Okuku. Yes, there is a huge difference. For a pedestrian who is not challenged in any way physically, you only need to provide the space. Now, for a blind person, you will need to retrofit the walkway so as to provide for him or her to walk on the walkway without losing way. For example, the same blind person, when they get to a crossing, probably they may have to be guided by either some kind of audio or something to be able to lead them to a proper crossing point. If you have somebody on a wheelchair, again, you want to provide for systems that can allow for the person on a wheelchair to be able to use either the walkway or the bus park, and even to get to the buses in a way that is not challenging to them. So I think just general non-motorized transport and provision for people with disability has to be discriminated in a way that we make sure that the livelihood of the person with disability is enhanced, and therefore they will then be allowed to contribute to the development of the country. Thank you.
Engineer Catherine, would you like to weigh in on this matter? I don't know if Engineer Tom is in the house. Engineer Tom?
Yes, I am in.
Oh, Engineer, would you, NMT and PWD provisions, would you just clarify this?
I think what Brian has said is partly a response to this. First of all, I think NMT, most PWDs are actually using non-motorized transport vehicles, or could be using also motorized vehicles, but they will always share the same space with those that are able and walking. The only thing we need to take into consideration is the dimensions of those vehicles that they use to meet their travel needs. And also, the only other thing that may be different from an able pedestrian, from a person with disability using a wheelchair, is the limitations that that person on the wheelchair has. For example, the gradients that somebody can go by using a wheelchair is different from a gradient that a pedestrian would use. So it means that the vehicle, or when you're designing a pedestrian walkway, you should look at the weakest person that would use that. Then you have gradients and, of course, the geometrics that help those people with disabilities not to use too much effort, because if it is too steep, they will not use it. And what we do here normally is that, you make a gradient for vehicles, looking at the heavy vehicles or whatever. But when the footpath comes, the footpath goes as per the original ground level. It means that a walkway is not designed. It is just put it on the OGL. And that's, I think, where we need to go into the PW needs and limitations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me address two matters that have been asked here. And can this study answer all questions there? The answer is no. This study is only a start, and we are addressing the vulnerable road users, and we are specific now to PWDs only. And can we answer even all domains of PWD? The answer again is not at this moment, and not in this study. We are not able to answer all, but it's a continuing study. So for this, we were addressing just an assessment. So the other question that I feel should be answered is, what are the authorities doing? I think minimized littering we have already addressed. A question to Kura officials. Engineer Ndege, did you receive this concerning Tom Mboya and Haile Selassie? I sent you the specifics. Could you respond to that?
The question again, Engineer?
I sent you a question from Engineer Brian Olima. Final year civil is not an engineer. He's a final year civil engineering student undertaking a project on availability and effectiveness of PWD facilities in Nairobi CBD, and he's focusing on two roads, Tom Mboya and Haile Selassie. So he's looking at the physical facilities for people with disabilities. He's asking what kind of physical facilities has been done on the two roads so far, and are there some that they are planning to add on the two roads, and how effective have they already placed facilities in decreasing mobility limitations for PWDs? Which methods do you use? You talked about retrofitting, and we discussed that Kura is undertaking retrofitting in the urban facilities. Could you explain what you are doing in that respect on the two roads in specific and in general on what Kura is implementing?
Okay, to be specific, we have a footing bridge that is connecting the Technical University of Kenya and CBK that was damaged by a truck carrying a plant. So it has not been in use for quite some time, but we retrofitted the footing bridge to a usable state. And now the pedestrians are using it. And also we have crossings that are failed, which are marked for people who are, for pedestrians to use them. That is on Elaserasi. And also on Tom Mboya Street, we only have crossings that are marked to enable pedestrians to use facility as a crossing point. That is basically what is provided now. And we are still looking for ways of improving in terms of provision of crossings and taking care of NMTs. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now, someone has asked a question on, do we need footbridges? Can we explore at-grade crossing for pedestrians? I think this is a perspective that we can look at as we look at the other issues. There are two matters that I hope that we can look at. The first is the advocacy groups that we contacted. We did not just contact Flown Initiative. We have been in touch with the National Council for People with Disabilities, Road Safety Initiatives, and Naomi's contact we got from a road safety champion called Lucas Monene, who linked us with this. So advocacy teams were part of the respondents that we talked to. This is a start of the study, not an end. We have only initiated the debate. This is not an end. Can we answer all questions? All the questions that are sent here and the ones that are emailed, we will respond to. And maybe the answers may not be what you expect, but we will do our best to give an answer that is according to our perspective. Due to the time limits that we have to wrap this session. I would like at this point to invite two panelists to say something to close this plenary session. The first is Enoch Riro, who I introduced as from the sales and inspection of compliance of standards at Hino. He works for Toyota Kenya, but is in Hino Heavy Industries provider. Enoch, are you present? Enoch Riro?
Yes, engineer, I'm present.
Okay, please proceed with your remarks.
Thank you very much. Engineers present, scholars, and all professionals. I would like to really thank you so much for thinking about this all-inclusive transport system. I think, like Prof said, it's a challenge that is across the world, and I think we owe each one of us a duty of care to ensure that everyone is a proponent and a recipient of good transport systems. Now, just to bring us up to speed on what we do, we basically supply buses for both the public and the private transport systems in the market today. And I have personally participated in the fabrication processes and, of course, the final inspection of several buses that we supply to the market through our appointed bus fabricators. I, of course, understand the stages of bus fabrication, right from chassis level to finishing. And we consider standards, collaborative working arrangements, and quality of works to be very important and very key for an all-inclusive transport system. I especially saw on transport vehicles, this needs to be achieved because this is where we've got people that may probably be, slightly lacking privileges. So significant efforts have been done in Kenya on these 3 areas that I've mentioned prior, and I hope we will improve even further on the econometric and space allocations that we give to our fabricated buses. I have committed to continue to support on this study, work with government agencies that will pursue these matters, and hope that it raises awareness on the need for an all-inclusive transport system and service. We need to have and enforce standards. We need to be consistent, and we need to ensure that there is conformity in this area of study. Otherwise, I just really want to thank you for I want to thank everyone, the presenters, and of course the study team for a job well done. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon. We hope to interact a little more on this matter. Thank you very much, Engineer.
Thank you very much, Enoch Riro, and I hope that we can get the ENG title before your name soon enough. Thank you very much. Engineer Tom Odago is a transport specialist and a road safety specialist. Engineer, please proceed and give your remarks.
Thank you very much, Engineer. Maybe before I start on my last remarks, I think there is something that, first of all, the team has done a good job. There are a lot of insights that now we know about people living with disabilities. But on one of the slides, I did not see the ideas or whether you contacted county governments. I think your study's approach is on an urban network. And I think the county governments are the ones responsible for the largest network in urban areas. They are also the ones that are in charge of the last mile connectivity. And one of the things is that without the last mile connectivity, the PWD will not get out of that place or will not use whatever means that you may think of. I know you have consulted NAMATA, but NAMATA is not a national body. It's a regional body. And whoever they speak for is the region, the 5 counties. It's good to contact them, but not yet. They are not yet national. And then I think somebody asked about the policy, NMT policy for Kenya. There is one for Nairobi, which we developed several years back. Implementation is ongoing, but I think it is not very organized. They can do better by better planning and designing. So now for my concluding remarks, I think I've been in this industry for quite a while. And it is therefore important that I mention a few thoughts that I have on this topic, very important topic of social equity and accessibility to transport systems by people with disabilities. Now, the first thing is that we can provide all-inclusive transport facilities if we consider all the road users. The problem is that we don't consider all road users. We go out there, we count vehicles, we don't count people. And even when we count people, we don't count people with disabilities or find out what their needs are. So we need at the planning stage to consult them, understand their transport needs, their limitations, because without their limitations, you don't know what you'll design for them, and so on. But at the design stage, we should analyze and engineer the solutions to meet their needs using proper standards. And if we do that, then the issue of retrofitting, I'm not against it, it is good, but it would not be necessary. It will not be necessary, and you will not need money to do that. Secondly, providing an all-inclusive design does not require substantial extra financing. The fact is that it saves money in the long term. The problem is that we often do not undertake life cycle economic analysis or social analysis of our transport investments that incorporates all costs and benefits, like the study team have pointed out, and not just for some users, all users should be considered. Now, related to that is that the argument that some countries cannot afford all-inclusive transport facilities is unfounded. I don't accept that argument, as the savings in, for example, cost of accidents, cost of not looking at the economic benefits that you get by PWDs getting into the economic sector. If you add those ones, you could find that there is a lot of benefits in these countries where we still have a lot of NMT users. And lastly, to provide all-inclusive road designs is also it's not enough. We also need design consistency throughout the entire road network to remove all bottlenecks. And I think PWDs have a lot of bottlenecks, even on those walkways that we say we are provided. You will still not find it easy to use them when you are on a wheelchair. The problem is also that not many of us are on wheelchairs or are people living with disabilities, but the challenges are much more than just NMTs. So for us to do that, of course, we need good policies to guide provision of infrastructure and also services, yeah? And also collaboration and also implementation of those policies. So finally, I'm very happy that this debate is happening now in Kenya because we are actually reviewing our design manuals. And some of these should find their way into those manuals. The consultancy is still going on. And I think this team should find time to present their findings and their recommendations, especially those that are related to engineering our roads. I happen to be in the task force and I will support those presentations if they are made. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer, for your statements, and I hope we will participate. It is now my privilege and pleasure to welcome the President of the World Road Association, Nazir Ali. Nazir has a wide range of experience in the road sector, and part of this study, the start of this study was actually for the World Road Association. Please welcome, Engineer, to make your remarks.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for the introduction, and also my sincere thanks to the organizers for having invited me here today. Look, this is very heartening to see that the project that may have been started somewhere else has come very close to home. I do regard Kenya very close to home. I'm based in South Africa, so Kenya is very much close to home for me. But I'm also very pleased to see that, and thank you to the Kenyan authorities for being part of the study. This will be now a case study that will be presented later this year. So thank you very much for that. And I do believe, I sincerely believe, that the work which has been done with Kenya being a case study, that there are a number of lessons that can be adapted within the other countries, and especially the neighboring countries. And I make an appeal again to the Kenyan authorities. You know, you are a member of PIARC, so please do participate in the activities of PIARC in the committees. You have a lot to contribute, and this webinar that we've had here this afternoon is very much evidence of what you have to contribute to the international community as far as making facilities which are accessible, both in terms of equity and accessibility. We need to understand that people with disabilities, irrespective of where in the world they are, they face very, very similar changes. So it will be very good for us to be able to try in some way harmonize our approach to what we provide as providers of infrastructure. So thank you very much for that, and congratulations, of course, to all the people who've been involved in this. Just one or two other comments from my side. In the chat box, I saw that the comment been made about the challenges that people have to climb up or move up a ramp as far as bridges are concerned, pedestrian bridges are concerned. And the solution being proposed is an ED-grade one. Yes, that is true. It will be easier to access in ED-grade underpass. But unfortunately, in a number of jurisdictions that that I have experience with, shows that there are issues around personal safety. There are issues around personal safety. So one has to take that into account as well in terms of what is visible and what is invisible when we're looking at the issues around personal safety as well. We now in the design work that we do in the infrastructure that we provide as well. Then, of course, there was the other one about the hawkers. Now, look, we all know that these, unfortunately, the hawkers can be a nuisance. But we need to be very, very mindful that the informal traders in our respective jurisdictions play a very, very important role in terms of making not only our economies grow, but reducing the high levels of unemployment that we experience in our jurisdictions. I'll give you an example of one of the projects. This is a time when I was still working and not in Sunrow. We have on our national highway, we had a lot of informal traders along the road. So we tried to say that, look, we need to try and make it safer for people to trade, not remove the informal traders, but make it safer, find a location for them where it will be safe for them to trade, but still along the road. Yes, we did do that successfully, but there's a very important lesson I learned from these informal traders, apart from, of course, the value that they bring to the economy and the reduction of unemployment. But one of the things they said, they clearly understood the competitive nature of the business. So said, yes, thank you very much. You provided us these facilities, which are safer. It's a marketplace now. And there's other things that we can do as well, other than just selling, what we used to sell alongside the roadside. But you need to help us in terms of making the facilities, the parking facilities, where people will stop and trade with us so that they can have access and egress to the facility that you're providing to us. And not only the access and egress, but other comfort facilities like ablution facilities, toilets, and that along this as well, where it becomes. Now, this becomes a major challenge for all of us. This is meant to be a national road, it's a high-speed through road, etc., and yet we need to provide this kind of facility. So there's a lot for us as engineers to apply our minds to, in terms of how do we provide facilities and adapt experiences from our different jurisdictions within our region to try and make life as easy as possible, not only for the informal traders, but more importantly, making sure there's access and there's equity in the provision of our infrastructure. And I do believe that this particular initiative currently starting is a good starting point for us. And hopefully that the lessons that we've learned from this over here that we will be able to take forward. Just a couple of comments on specifically on the excellent presentation that was made by Dr. Estras and the issue around methodology. We need to also look at the safety. When I'm talking about the safety of the vehicles which are providing the services. Now, we know full well, and let's be honest about this, whether we call them minibus taxis as we do here in South Africa, or whether we call them matatus as we call them in other jurisdictions, they are not really safe. Let's be honest about it, I understand the pressures, economic pressures they also face when they have to, they're competing with the larger buses, etc. But the ease with which they provide services, especially within our informal settlements, which the buses don't go to. But how do we convince them to provide a better service in terms of both the safety and the quality of the service, but also as far as their vehicles are concerned, their driving behaviors. So we got a lot of work to do on that particular area as well. And I'm hoping that with further collaboration, that we can come up with ideas and policies regarding this, not only the operations within the road sector, but the operations of the services that are provided on our infrastructure. And I do agree with Engineer Odago regarding the issues that the points that he's made regarding the funding. Of course, we all know that funding, and many times I believe many of us, we tend to use funding as excuse for not providing the services that we require to do that. So thank you very much to Engineer Odago for raising with that. Last but not least, I'm hoping to see as many of you as possible in Prague in October, from 2 to 6 October, at the 27th World Road Congress, where the findings of the work which has been done on this particular project on social equity and social accessibility by PIARC and folks like Dr. Estras will be ventilated in much depth. So please do join us in Prague. Now, I am going to take the liberty, if people don't mind, now that I have email addresses, I will send you out the circular if you have not yet received that. So thank you very much, and congratulations to everybody involved in this particular project. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind remarks. And I'll invite now Dr. Estras to issue the closing statements, and we can be done. Dr. Estras.
Thank you very much, Mr. Engineer Opuge, for the challenge. Can you hear me, I think yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
I am saying thank you for giving me this challenge to speak after Mr. Nazir, which is not easy, but I take it because you gave me. So my statement is only to say thank you, and thank you so much to everyone who participated in this workshop. It has really been a success. I have been putting an eye on the participants. We started with, or the numbers have been moving between 175, and then we are still 150. So that shows really how the matter is serious and how people are interested. As I said, social equity and social accessibility are broad and crucial to our transport systems, and anything we would have as a dream for sustainable development is or would be a lie if we ignore the needs for inclusive transport. I remember one of the UN's, how can I call it, indicator for sustainable development related to transport is to ensure that everybody within 2 kilometers can access the road. And if we say everybody, we also mean people with disabilities. And if we come back to Kenya, we are now talking about between 4.5 and 7% of people with disabilities. How can you ignore all those people in what you are doing and believe that you're going to achieve sustainable development? It's not possible. So we need to include all of them. So finally, I really sent my particular thanks to Kenya for supporting this. They have really been active, helpful, collaborating very well. And we think this is a starting point. We probably have these kind of discussions every year. And I am very sure, convinced that if we do that in 5 years, we will be somewhere else. We have really obvious changes in our transport systems. Many thanks to PIARC for funding the big project associated to this one. And like Nazir has said, details of this case study of Kenya, and as well as details of the bigger study that we are undertaking, will be given in Prague in October. So please feel free to come and visit where we will be explaining this. Many thanks to IRF for hosting and supporting the workshop on their websites. So I would like to remind people that the presentations will be put in PDF and uploaded there. And this video or presentations has been recorded and it will be there as well. So feel free to visit. And of course, many thanks to the University of Birmingham, my employer. They have also been supportive. And we are, as usual, very committed and ambitious to making the world better through research, education, and knowledge transfer. Thank you to all the participants, and thank you, moderator. You've done the good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now thank you all for attending. May you rest easy. I think the
Thank
workshop.
you, Ephraim. Thank you.
Thank you.